It's time now for Upcycling Academy, helping you to make the best of everything in your home, particularly those kind of unloved things that you've stuffed in a cupboard or you've stuffed in a corner and you think, I'm going to do something with that one day. Well, your day has come, and we have with us interior designer John Amabile and DIY expert Laura DeBarra to give you some advice if you want it. So you can text 80295, and if you want to just show off and say, hey, look what I did, then just take a picture and email it to us, k@bbc.co.uk. We're talking curtains this week, but before we get into the subject matter, we have to play Where in the World is John? Where in the world is John?
I'm still in Goa, but I'm 10 miles south down the coast, and sorry to tell you that, but yeah, I'm still here, and I'm going to be here next week as well, but I'll be back in Bonnie, Scotland soon.
Fantastic. Don't tell us you're on a beautiful beach with beautiful sunshine.
36 degrees.
Too hot.
And I've actually taken an old pair of double width curtains and turned them into a thong. That's how upcycled I am this trip. International thong.
That I would like to see. Laura, how sick is he making you feel?
Oh, I am green with envy. I would love to be in that weather right now.
Yeah, no, but you wouldn't like to see his thong, so there's always an upside, isn't there?
I mean, I think I'd actually enjoy it a lot.
If you just squinted at it with one eye, I don't think it would be too bad.
Thank you.
Now, John, you used to be the king of the swags and tails. Obviously, I'm talking, what do we call it? It's window dressing. Is that what we call it?
Window dressing, yes. I mean, when I started my long career in interior design, curtains were all about swags, tails, canopies, over-the-top, rococo, beautiful, swathed windows. But we've gone a lot more simplistic as we've gone along the road, which means we've got a lot of fabric about the place.
Well, absolutely. And it will be really good quality fabric, I'm sure, and sort of sizable lengths of it. So what can you do with it? That is the question. Laura, well, what do you do with old curtain material? But the other thing to enter into this, and I don't know if I'm throwing you a curveball here, but, you know, the chat at the moment is all about energy prices, is all about trying to sort of make your homes nice and warm. So, I don't know, maybe we should be putting our curtains back up at our windows.
I think so. I think we should be considering the role of the curtains other than just aesthetically. Basically, I think there's ways to keep the house warmer. There's no quick fix, but there are things that you can do with your windows and your curtains to keep your house warmer and keep the heat in. If you don't like your curtains, like when I lived in Edinburgh for ages, I was always freezing in our flats, single glazed windows and really thin curtains. You can layer up your curtains with the fabric you like. So if you have window dressing in place, you're more than halfway there. You just need to cover it in a fabric you love. You're adding more weight to the fabric and keeping the heat in and the cold out. So
when you say you could cover it with another material, so what, you just tack new material on top of the existing curtain?
Yeah, like I've never had a landlord who's had nice curtains in place ever. It's usually like leftover curtains from their house that they put into their rental, or it's one they put in years ago and they've left there. So what I used to always, like IKEA do amazing lengths of fabric that are quite heavy duty upholstery fabrics, and a lot of them are for indoor and outdoor use, which means they don't bleach from UV rays in the window, which is amazing. But I'd always go for a light colour anyway, and then you can just buy them by the metre and you just lay the curtain out on the floor, fold it over as if you're doing a hem, just a double hem, and tack it on. And then you can just snip the thread at the end of your tenancy, slide it out, take away the fabric, and the curtains are exactly as they were when you moved in.
Wow, good tip.
And it's super heavy.
Yeah, super heavy. Gives that extra layer of heat insulation. So, John, if you have curtains, and I mean, I've certainly got curtains that I've taken down because I don't like the way they look at the windows anymore, but it just seems such a waste to get rid of them. But so they sit in a cupboard. What can you usefully do with them?
Well, if it's a fabric that is too busy maybe for curtains, maybe it could look quite nice in another room turned into a Roman blind, or a Roman blind and a cushion and a little bed throw, so you can get a nice little coordinated look. So you could keep it in the same vein of use. But if it's something that you think you'll never use again, but it's quite funky, it could be really good toy bags for kids, drawstring toy bags, beach bags, great for storage bags, good for laundry bags, and they're super easy to make because you're just hemming at the top of it, putting a rope or a tie through the top, and it's a great storage bag. And altogether, they actually look really attractive.
Do you think curtains will come back from an aesthetic point of view? You know, just given that people are going to be much more aware of, minimising their energy use.
Okay, pull yourself together. Curtains. So there you go. Yeah. For me, curtains have never really gone away. I always think a room, even if it's a simplistic cotton voile, you need a little bit of something, a little bit of softness in a room. It helps with the echoiness of the room. It helps with coziness in the winter. And it just adds another dimension, whether it be plain or patterned, but it gives another texture in the overall design aspect of the room.
Mm-hmm. But if you've got curtains that you're not particularly liking in that space, you could cut them down for another room, or as you say, you could use a blind and perhaps get an extra cushion out of it, or whatever. So it's using that fabric. So your challenge this week was old plant pots. And I have certainly got loads of those hanging around the garden, and people now beginning to get out in the garden again, thank goodness, getting a bit of lighter nights. We've had some lovely days this week. So, Laura, plant pots, go.
I think for upcycling something into a plant pot, you can use anything. But for older plant pots, one of my favorite things to do with them, if you have ones that are broken, etc., I love kintsugi, which it's the Japanese art basically of mending something using gold, but you don't actually have to use gold. So you can buy these kits online where you can stick your plant pots back together. Often we get rid of plant pots because they break, and you can stick them back together, and instead the crack becomes a feature rather than something bad. And then also I find a lot of people tend to want to get rid of their plant pots because they don't match, or there's they buy a load and at different times and they want to streamline the garden. So painting them in a black outdoor paint, which is usually quite cheap to pick up because it's usually for floors, can go onto a porous surface like a plant pot, and it can streamline your garden. If you have them all done in a really deep charcoal, it can look really, really nice against foliage. And then when it comes to like upcycling something into a plant pot, it's limitless. Like when you look online, you've got people transforming upside down umbrellas, baths, toilets, old toys, chairs, etc. All you need to do is make sure there's correct drainage. For me, I prefer a garden that is more muted in colour, so I'd always bring things back to like charcoals and like different shades of grey, but not a light grey. But you can do bright pops of colours as well.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. We call it a plant. It's funny, isn't it, that things get a certain name, don't they? So that is a plant pot, but ultimately it's just a receptacle, isn't it? And there's so many different things that can be a receptacle. I mean, the shunky is actually a perfect one, isn't it, John? If you've got an old shunky lying around, what a lovely plant pot it can make.
They can, and because it's a lovely old porcelain, it actually can look pretty Victorian, and it's quite shabby chic to do things like that just now. But even if you look at, we all buy a little pot plant here and there, and there's loads of plastic pots lying about the place. But if you've seen these lovely urban installations where the side of a building in San Francisco is completely full of greenery, you could do a similar thing with an old piece of timber against the wall, make sure it's not going to cause any damp or anything, and start screwing on a lot of these different pots, and you can create your own wall garden. So even if you don't have a garden that's huge, you could stack these screwed pots to a wall or to a batten and start growing herbs or plants or trailing, and you've got a beautiful wall of greenery.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that, and it does look fantastic. You mentioned the plastic plant pots, which I don't suppose you would be repainting or whatever. I mean, is there anything you can do with them?
I think the best thing to do is reuse them for what they're used for, but try and hide them. So try and stack them up somewhere. They're great for storage. They're great for, don't throw them out into some landfill site where they'll be there forever and ever. Use them for seedlings or for gifts. Sometimes if you get a couple of cuttings and you can wrap it up in lovely brown paper or netting a big ribbon around it, reuse them, re-gift them, pass them on.
Right, okay. Well, listen, thank you very much, John. We'll let you get back to your sunbathing there in Goa. And Laura, I'm not going to rub your nose in it anymore, nor indeed mine, but thank you very much as ever. Laura DeBarra, DIY expert, and John Amabile, interior designer.